Simpkins, and a few years ago we were asked by Diana to act as her power of attorney if needed while she was living, and her executors when she, as it says so eloquently in the Free Press obituary, moved on to new adventures. The Stewarts and McIntoshes go back with numerous family connections over 100 years and 3 generations. I first met Diana in 1959, just after she'd married Grant. They moved back to Winnipeg. I can't remember where I first saw her, but she was playing the piano. Glenn and June Simpkins have been next door neighbors on Kingston Crescent for a long time. Glenn?
Yes, on that note, we have been neighbors of Diana and Grant's for a long time. We moved into our home on Kingston Crescent in '96. And we remember very vividly talking to Grant and Diana, because it was high water levels at that time, and saying, okay, what is the lay of the land here as far as floods and whatnot? And Grant promised me no issues whatsoever. And most of you in this room will recall the flood of '97. And so we got to know the neighbors and Grant and Diana very quickly, very well. We moved in, and I think their peace and tranquility went out the window because we had 4 teenagers at the time. So I'm sure we provided them some entertainment. So that's where we fit in. And Grant and Diana were in their home for 60 plus years, and so they were certainly entrenched in the community, and certainly loved the surroundings and living on the river. So as we have as well. Nature was a big part of Diana and Grant's philosophy. The mountains, spent many a hiking, climbing trip. Spending time. They actually had 6 weeks at one time of timeshares in Fairmont. And that was scaled down over the years. And the last one, I helped Diana get out of about 2 years ago now. But they would spend 6 weeks in Fairmont, 3 weeks over the Christmas, New Year's period. And Diana spent a lot of time too at the Banff Center for Arts and Creativity. I think they had creativity after Diana was there for a few trips. And there was a connection with Diana when she was young too, with Aunt Kate. So, and sorry, I lost my connection here. Oops, there we go. So many trips, largely because of Diana's music, with Grant, as her roadie, as she would call it. Grant's passing in 2010 was very hard on Diana. She pushed to be independent as much as she could, performing right up through till 2018, I believe. And the pandemic, of course, did a number on Diana, like it has a lot of people, which really was too bad, because she lost some of that connection and freedom that was associated in her life. So she doesn't have any relatives in close proximity in Winnipeg. She has 2 direct nieces that live in Duncan, BC, and Victoria. And, she had a knack for developing other networks, though. And whether it was, neighbors, church, music connections, it was a very, very big part of her extended family at that point. I happen to work from home, so as a result, I happened to have my office in the front of the house, so I had much more visibility to Diana's comings and goings for the last many years, and it could be entertaining at times. I mean, she wasn't the best driver, and they didn't have a straight driveway. So I mean, part of the problem was there was a big tree next to the driveway, and every so often I'd hear this thud, and that would be Diana. She fought with computer skills, but she eventually got to a point where she could handle matters quite well. And I sort of jokingly call her the sticky note queen. She should have had shares in 3M, to be honest with you. She had sticky notes, and Gene and Barb can attest to that just about everywhere. And there were some inner sanctums in the McIntosh house that even the gal that came to clean periodically would not have access to. So there was two zones in the house, and a lot of people in this room would know it as the one area in the main level that had her Steinway, where she would give concerts and whatnot. There was another area upstairs where she had another grand piano, her Yamaha, which was actually I swear she had started writing by the time she got up in the morning to the time she went to bed at night. The amount of information and scripts and manuscripts that she put out over the years on every type of media was amazing. From CDs to discs to reel, and David Scott can appreciate with the original scores that he has in his possession. Moving out of her house was a challenge. She was adamant she was never going to leave that house, and Diana is kind of funny that way because she was very matter of fact. One day over an iced cappuccino at Tim's, which is her favorite, she asked me straight up, should I sell my house, and should I stop driving? I was quite relieved actually at that point. And so yes, I said it is time, and that's where we moved on to list the house, and she stopped driving. So there was another number of steps that had to take place from that point on. The music archives was something that we walked up into her inner sanctum and we looked at it and we go, where do we start? And thankfully we were able to find a U of M archives connection that they came in like a forensic crew. They treated everything properly. It was all archived to the U of M, and that's where a lot of Diana's scores are over the years. And we tried to do justice to a lot of her pieces, whether it be furniture or grand pianos and whatnot. Both her grand pianos are being refurbished, and they will find another life. So that was her intent. Initially, they were going to be left to the schools of music, but they needed too much work, and they just couldn't handle them. So I keep losing my connection here, Bill. Sorry.
Well, at least you remember. At least you remember your number to get back.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, the amount of material, as I mentioned before, was insurmountable almost when we started digging into, what we're going to do with a lot of that material. So hopefully we did it justice. Hopefully we found homes for a lot of Diana's favorite things. And believe me, Diana was one of a kind. She was a true friend, an absolute character, and an entertainer to the end. And we will miss her.
Very good. As many of you will know from direct experience, Diana could be serious, whimsical, and bordering on outrageous. Well, maybe just straight outrageous, all in a very short period. Glenn and I and Diana had lunch, probably it was in August, and it was kind of a business meeting, and it got kind of serious, and she was concerned then. She realized that she was having to give up really quite a lot of her independence. So there's this little bit of agony going back and forth, just how much should you say and how candid should we be and all the rest. And there are, how these conversations go, and we're shuffling our feet and twiddling our thumbs. Glenn had risen to the occasion very well and given her some honest answers in a comforting way. A little time passed, and then Diana said, "I want you to know my bowels work perfectly." Can I say we were relieved? Diana had a deep well of goodness and faith that helped her through life, especially the last few months. She was a Christian Scientist from infancy, as was Grant. And Sandy Dawiduk, a friend from church, spent an increasing amount of time with Diana this fall. So Sandy, please. And these, I believe, you will be presenting some of her favorite readings from Science and Health and from the Bible,
Yes,
and from the Christian Science hymnal.
hymnal. And I just want to say it was a delight spending extra time with Diana. I'm going to read, to begin with, a hymn that Diana she included it in her day, every day. And these, I'll read the first verse of it. This is the day the Lord hath made. Be glad, give thanks, rejoice, stand in his presence, unafraid. In praise lift up your voice. All perfect gifts are from above, and all our blessings show the amplitude of God's dear love, which every heart may know. So that entered in at some point whenever I was with her. I shall read from the King James Version of the Bible. 1 John. We have known and believed the love that God hath to us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Genesis. God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth on the earth. John. These words spake Jesus. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out, and find pasture. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father, which gave them me, is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. 1 Corinthians. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall put on incorruption, and when this mortal shall put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. 2 Corinthians. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. Therefore we are always confident, knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. For though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. John. I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. And ye now therefore have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart shall rejoice, and your joy no man taketh from you. Romans. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I shall read passages from the Christian Science textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. God, the great I am, the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-acting, all-wise, all-loving, and eternal, principle, mind, soul, spirit, life, truth, love, all substance, intelligence. God is love. More than this we cannot ask. Higher we cannot look. Farther we cannot go. The scriptures inform us that man is made in the image and likeness of God. Matter is not that likeness. The likeness of spirit cannot be so unlike spirit. Man is spiritual and perfect, and because he is spiritual and perfect, he must be so understood in Christian Science. Man is idea, the image of love. He is not physique. Glory be to God, and peace to the struggling hearts. Christ hath rolled away the stone from the door of human hope and faith, and through the revelation and demonstration of life in God, hath elevated them to possible at-one-ment with the spiritual idea of man and his divine principle, love. Jesus said substantially, He that believeth in me shall not see death. That is, he who perceives the true idea of life loses his belief in death. Such a one abideth in life, life obtained not of the body, incapable of supporting life, but of truth, unfolding its own immortal idea. Jesus gave the true idea of being, which results in infinite blessings to mortals. When you say man's body is material, I say with Paul, be willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Give up your material belief of mind in matter, and have but one mind, even God, for this mind forms its own likeness. Man in science is neither young nor old. He has neither birth nor death. Even Shakespeare's poetry pictures age as infancy, as helplessness and decadence, instead of assigning to man the everlasting grandeur and immortality of development, power, and prestige. Man governed by immortal mind is always beautiful and grand. Each succeeding year unfolds wisdom, beauty, and holiness. From this it follows that businessmen and cultured scholars have found that Christian Science enhances their endurance and mental powers, gives them acuteness and comprehensiveness, and an ability to exceed their ordinary capacity. I agree with Reverend Dr. Talmage that there are wit, humor, and enduring vivacity among God's people. That's from Miscellaneous Writings by Mary Baker Eddy. When we wake to the truth of being, all disease, pain, weakness, weariness, sorrow, sin, death will be unknown, and the mortal dream will forever cease. If you or I should appear to die, we should not be dead. But the forever fact remains paramount, that life, truth, and love save from sin, disease, and death. When this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, divine science, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. St. Paul. We all must learn that life is God. Ask yourself, am I living the life that approaches the supreme good? Your fruits will prove what the understanding of God brings to man. When man gives up his belief in death, he will advance more rapidly towards God, life, and love. In the following psalm, one word shows, though faintly, the light which Christian Science throws on these scriptures by substituting for the corporeal sense the incorporeal or spiritual sense of deity. Divine love is my shepherd. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for love is with me. Love's rod and love's staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house, the consciousness of love, forever. If you have a moment, Diana's favorite hymn was a poem by Mary Baker Eddy entitled Mother's Evening Prayer, and it is in one of the books set up in the O Gentle Presence room. Can I leave these here, or should I take them?
My sister Allison and I were brought up in a Christian Science household. Our father was a Christian Scientist, and I remember that hymn very well. I could sing the first line or two, but
Diana would be pleased.
I just remember da 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 Da, 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 da. Anyway, so Diana and Sandy spent a lot of time together, and a lot of their time together was spent reading many of those passages that we heard today, passages that illumined her life throughout. And Sandy has a great sense of humor, just as Diana did. So you should ask her any time while we're here today about making porridge together. Another longtime connection of faith and friendship for Diana was with the Deegans, Jean and Barb.
Yes, Barb and her family have connections with Diana that go back many decades, and but the two of us really have gotten to know Diana much better in the last, well, since Grant passed away, and then particularly the last few years. And I see the reference to the miracle at 469 Kingston Crescent that Glenn's given a bit of an overview of, and I won't spend more time on that, but I think there's a lesson in there for all of us. Do throw stuff out when you no longer need it. So it's my pleasure to share some of the memories that Barb and I have of Diana. Our favorite recollections are of the appreciation, enthusiasm, and joy she expressed. One of Diana's favorite things to do was go to St. Vital Park. As I think about that, I realize that the park was a place that many of her loves came together. The park was a love she shared with Grant, and they especially enjoyed the geese. This led to her choice to create a performance piece based on the migration of the geese. In the piece, she alluded to Grant's passing. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that piece. St. Vital Park was a place she could satisfy her general love of nature. The pond, the waterfowl, the flowers and trees, they all thrilled her. On her walks around the pond, she would meet and chat with people and dote on their children and pets. She was never shy to strike up a conversation. Perhaps she was a memorable person for some of the park patrons, as she dressed in a comfortable and flamboyant way, and her laugh was full and infectious. She did love animals and would light up when she recalled the time that someone's golden lab jumped up on the bench to lean in and cuddle with her. Her life at Martha's was much richer for having Freddie the cat there to snuggle with. The park was also a place where she expressed her love and commitment to her faith. She would bring her books, pick a place to park, and take some time for study and prayer. Her pleasure in this was even greater if she was also sipping one of her beloved ice caps from Tim Hortons. Her love of the park makes me think of how precious her times with Grant in the mountains were. They traveled to the Rockies many times for hiking, climbing, skiing, and visits with their friends Honor and Bill Hill. The mountains inspired some of her works, and the Banff Center became a regular place for her creative activity. On her visits to our house, she sometimes saw our grandson Jacob. She was thoroughly smitten by him, and Jacob would often ask when he would be able to see his friend Diana again. Unfortunately, COVID got in the way of them having more time together. Another pleasure at our house was playing rummy. Her skills had been honed in her years of playing with Grant, so she often won, expressing great pleasure in doing so. She was not cursed with an overabundance of humility. Diana's life brought many gifts to us. Her effusive appreciation for the people and things in her life, her quirky sense of humor, and her enjoyment in laughing at herself. Her commitment to her church and faith, her musical performances in her living room and in formal settings. Our lives are indeed richer for having known her. As I got dressed today, I had this kind of awareness that these socks that I'd had in the back of my drawer unworn for more than 5 years, there actually was a use for them, and this was it. They were here for this day.
Grant socks.
And Barb's got Diana's poncho, which is in her favorite color, orange. So,
Grant in his socks. How did a straight-laced accountant turn into a roadie? That's what I ask you. Diana's survived by 2 nieces on her side of the family, 7 nephews and nieces on Grant's side, and Gordon McIntosh and his family have lived for many years in the States. I know that they're connected by Zoom right now. Others may be as well. Gordon says he called Diana every year on her birthday just to be sure that he was in touch at least once a year. Not because it was her birthday. Diana never talked about age. Never. Hers or anybody else's. And any ages you see, they're all fiction. She just didn't think it mattered. She lived in the present, and she faced each day with what skills and energy God gave her. Diana's niece, Marilyn Lyson, and her husband Wayne live in Alberta, except in the winter when they're in the Arizona desert. She asked that we read a brief letter from her. January 27th, we are remembering Diana as our aunt. Diana's big smile, her sense of humor, her zest for life. Diana saw beauty in everything, especially her beloved Alberta Rocky Mountains. Diana inspired us to use our imaginations, and she taught us to hear the music in nature. We appreciated all the summer and Christmas visits we had in Edmonton with Grant and Diana, and then just Diana. All the nieces and nephews were important to Diana, and she loved keeping in touch with us in various ways. We feel blessed to have had Diana as part of our family. The McIntosh nieces and nephews, signed by Marilyn License. Martha Vargas came from Mexico City to Winnipeg in her student days, and she stayed. As a Christian Science nurse, she has helped support several people from the church, not the least being Diana. She accompanied her to Victoria this year, and then when Diana returned, rather than trying to continue living in her own house, she lived out her remaining few months with Martha. Martha?
Well, I hope it's not enough. There you go. Well, buenas tardes. Well, I should say good afternoon. My name is Marta Vargas, as Bill said. I met Diana at the Christian Science Church almost 20 years ago. When I first came to Winnipeg, I could only speak Spanish. So Diana liked to tell the story that when I first came to the church, everyone started looking for Grant, her husband, and because it was understood that he could speak Spanish. So Diana would remember that when I met Grant, I started to speak Spanish very, very quickly. And Grant will have to slow me down for him to be able to understand me. After Grant passed, Diana needed to take care of many things that usually Grant was taking care of. Bills, the house, and using the laptop more often. So for a few months, I visited with her as good friends while she was getting accustomed to being by herself, and on occasion, I would sleep over. Long conversation about our mutual love and Christian Science. Also, watch movies with popcorn and share long walks at San Vital, as they mentioned before, for white parks, as she really enjoys seeing the birds, the dogs, and the children. We also learn things from each other. One of the things one of those things was that she taught me how to play one of her favorite hymns, "Oh Gentle Present," the one that they were saying, by Mary Baker Eddy, on her grand piano, using all my fingers. And in return, I taught her how to type on her laptop using all her fingers. In the beginning, it was quite funny, as Diana tried to type on the computer like playing the piano. And on the other hand, I tried to play the piano like using the keyboard. And guess what? With the pass of the days, we improved, and I don't think that she ever really liked using the computer, but she found it useful. This past year, as Bill mentioned, Diana moved to my home, and she loved my cat, Freddie. Well, Diana did anything she could think of to get Freddie to love her. I didn't give Freddie treats, but guess what? Diana was giving him treats all the time. And she even connected an electric blanket so that he would stay close to her. Diana's family from Alberta, BC, and Florida came from a visit, and she was so happy to see them. But she was a bit sad when they left. However, she was a strong woman who was always led to express joy, and this helped her to move on. We agree that she has a very loving family, but also very close friends, just like family. Many of the friends that would visit Diana were men. And she would often joke that she had more dates than I have. And that she was going out for dates with her boyfriends. So Diana never seemed to want to stop performing. And at one time, she taught me into singing for a small concert for friends. Oh my goodness. I was so nervous that my voice was gone. But Diana was so good at performing that it was so natural for her to move on smoothly and harmoniously. And she saved the show. So, I should add, a number of friends cared dearly for Diana, and Diana was very good at involving and communicating with them. Glenn Simpkins, Barb, and Jean Dijen were especially dedicated and wonderful support to Diana. I will especially remember Diana for her dedication to God, to the study of Christian Science, for her good sense of humor, and the sparkly artistic and creative touch that she put into her music, certainly, but also in everything she did. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Ben Reimer and Laurel Ridd. Now, and those a number of you will know that we have a new music festival going on in Winnipeg these days. So a lot of musicians here have been playing a lot of notes, and it was great that both Laurel and Ben were able to come today and play a piece of Diana's music. You know, before her association with Groundswell, Diana started a musical venture called Music Inter Alia. And with her unrelenting promotional skills, she called this contemporary music for people who don't like contemporary music. But you know what? People showed up. In fact, they showed up at pretty significant numbers at the Muriel Richardson Auditorium at the WAG. And she got a lot of publicity. Well, the size of her audience has prompted one of my somewhat envious music friends to say, but they're all Christian Scientists. And your point is? More than a little exaggeration, perhaps. But in my experience, Christian Scientists are a pretty literate, well-educated, engaging, and engaged lot, and naturally, they supported Diana. So, throughout her career, Diana put heart and soul into writing and performing music and getting it before the public. Her output is absolutely incredible. By 1990, it was time to move beyond Music Inter Alia, and she became part of a group all involved in contemporary classical music to start Groundswell, which exists and flourishes to this day. Victoria Sparks is the current Groundswell president, fine musician herself, that many of you will have heard in Winnipeg. And she brings greetings, followed by Gordon Fitzell, the current artistic co-director.
Thank you so much. Gordon and I are going to tag team this. First, I want to say thank you to Ben and Laurel. It was really nice to hear some of Diana's music. That piece was they also recorded on her album Pinnacles, celebrating her love of nature and climbing. So the same musicians that you heard today are also on that album. As was mentioned, my name is Victoria Sparks, president of the Groundswell Board, and I'm here with Gordon Fitzell. We're grateful to for this opportunity to be part of remembering and celebrating one of the icons of new music in Manitoba. While I knew Diana most recently through Groundswell as a curator and an artistic director and a fellow board member, I was a student at the University of Manitoba when I first saw a midday recital of Diana's music. She performed her iconic work and 8:30 in Newfoundland. And for a first-year music student from a small town, I knew I was hearing something completely new. Her piece changed my thinking and my perspective on creating sound and taking inspiration from the world around us. I hope that everyone here who knew Diana will understand what I mean when I say that over time, I really loved thinking of Diana as my favorite kook. She really showed me the idea that sometimes it's okay to step outside of your boundaries and your comfort zones and express yourself. I will always be grateful to her for teaching me that lesson. Maybe someday I'll have the courage to pull off a pair of red cowboy boots.
As Tori noted, my name is Gordon Fitzell, and I had the pleasure of serving with Diana as artistic co-director of Groundswell for about 15 years. And it was just fantastic. She was a fantastic person to work with. And as Bill said, the organization that she co-founded 30 years ago is still going strong today, so that's a real testament as well. And I just wanted to share one story. Often we curators tend to work individually as we prepare these concerts, bouncing ideas off each other, etc. But on one occasion, Diane and I actually co-curated one of our larger events at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. It was the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Winnipeg New Music Festival. And the then WSO music director, Alexander Micklethwaite, approached us and had this idea. He wanted to create a spectacle and wanted it to be experimental and edgy and of course, who was the first artist he thought of, but Diana. And she did not disappoint. Bullhorn, white lab coat, and sort of a jester hat about this high with bells. But an interesting thing for all the zaniness for which she's renowned, and well known in many respects in different areas of her life, I think a lot of you will agree. She was really a meticulous professional also. Everything was intentional, and she was always well prepared, well rehearsed, and needless to say, every aspect of that event in 2011 was carefully crafted. And as one of her friends and fellow composers noted, a true original. Might have been Sid, I'm not sure. But one of her albums was called the original McIntosh. Diana was a uniquely creative artist with an indomitable spirit and a kind heart, and I'll miss her dearly.
Tributes have been pouring in from across the country and across the world. We'd like to share a few from some of our colleagues at Groundswell who knew her well but are not presently in Winnipeg. So the first comes from Karen Sunabaka. Karen says, my first memories of Diana McIntosh are from Winnipeg's New Music Festival in the late 1990s. There was a piano concerto titled 9-Foot Clearance that was commissioned by the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, where she interlaced theater into the performance. There are numerous theatrical elements, but at one point the conductor and piano fall in love, flirting and leaning towards each other. Pianist. Maestro Brownwell Tovey and Diana performed this beautifully, and it was incredibly funny. Karen says, her pieces engaged me in ways that were new and exciting. At the time, I was a new university student starting to think about composition. Before university, I had grown up playing cello and singing in children's choirs, where I was generally trained in Baroque, classical, and Romantic music, and I found contemporary music weird and dissonant. It was hard for me to understand why people would write new music. Diana's music bridged that gap and helped me to see the fun and interesting side of new music, but she also expanded for me the definition of new music. It didn't all have to be boring, dissonant, and serious. There could be stories and comedy within the music. Karen says, I joined the Groundswell board in 2007 when I moved back to Winnipeg after my PhD studies, and was lucky to see her in action right until 2020 when she resigned as artistic director. She was adamant that it was not a retirement. It was only at that time that we realized that she was in her 80s. Sorry, we weren't supposed to talk about her age. Never mind. I'm sorry, never mind. I never said a thing.
Only Canada Revenue knows for sure.
The definition of being timeless, right? Diana McIntosh was a great pianist, composer, and performance artist. She was quirky, fearless, and inventive. She was also able to explore serious issues such as the story of David Milgaard or pollution of the Great Lakes. She was a unique female voice in a music world often gendered by male voices. She helped me to find my voice, and I know that she influenced many others, and she will be missed.
So we're pleased to bring you this groundswell perspective of that aspect of Diana's life, and it's been so wonderful to hear the reminiscences from other aspects of her life. But we thought we'd leave you with a few comments from two other artistic directors of Groundswell who are out of the country right now, but worked with her for a very long time. I said I'd worked with her about 15 years, but Jim Hiscott and Michael Matthews worked with her starting over 30 years ago. So here's a little something, an excerpt from something that Jim Hiscott wrote. Diana McIntosh was a truly unique composer, performer, curator, and person. She was a prolific composer who wrote music in many forms, including solo piano, chamber, orchestral, choral, electroacoustic, multimedia, and theater pieces. She sang, spoke, and acted, all while playing the keyboards. She performed her own music in concerts around the world and made loyal contacts through her network of presenters and fans. She also made many recordings of her music. And Diana began doing all of this at a time when there weren't many women composers in Canada or elsewhere, blazing a trail and continuing indefatigably throughout her life. She is celebrated by musicians and composers across Canada and around the world. And finally, we'd like to leave you with the comments of Michael Matthews, as I say, another artistic co-director of Groundswell. So Michael says, when I arrived in Winnipeg in the early 1980s, it was Diana who offered me my first commission and performance in the city on her Music Inter Alia series. I regularly attended Music Inter Alia concerts and was always presented with creative programming and a wide diversity of local, regional, and international contemporary music. Diana was not only a dedicated composer and performer, but also a dedicated concert entrepreneur and a stalwart supporter of Canadian composers. Over the course of a long and illustrious career, Diana was a vital contributor to the development of Canadian arts and culture. Because of her work, many Canadian composers were given important career opportunities, and her audiences were given the chance to become acquainted with the richness and scope of the music of our time. She will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I was just trying to think how Diana would have dealt with this. She had that part of perfection about her, and things might appear to be pretty scattered and off the cuff, but actually it all went according to plan. And, we took a little longer than we had perhaps intended today, but I think it was all extremely worthwhile. I'm sure Diana would have approved. This is just like being at one of her home concerts. And there's still some food left, by the way, so we won't chase you out the door. There's some cake. Oh, the cake. Wonderful cake. I hope we took a picture of it first before we cut it all up into pieces, because it had a keyboard on it. Well, you can't remember everything. So we've read and heard a lot about this remarkable and very good person. And by the way, there might still be a few printouts of articles on the table in the small dining room, which is just next to this one here. And there are some other pictures from her career that are kind of fun to look at, and a little tin piano that was featured in a concert at one point in her life. So I thought we might wrap up this program with a reflection that's often used in this or a similar form, sometimes at a funeral service, but more often in celebrations of life or a remembrance event. We hope that nothing good in Diana's life will be lost, but will continue to be of benefit to all, that all that was important to her will be respected by those who follow, and that everything in which she was great will continue to mean much to us. Thank you, everybody, for coming.